Welcome to the PitchVision Academy Cricket Show. This is your guide to better cricket. It's about half an hour long, and we're here to give you a hand with the game, whether that's as a player or as a coach. We want to help you out. So who are we? My name is David Hinchliffe. I look after things, and helping me to help you are two very fine cricket coaches. The first is the Director of Cricket at Millfield School. It's Mark Garaway. Hello, Gareth. How's it going?
Very good, thank you. Yeah, feeling very festive. Looking forward to a week of overindulgence, which will be good. And then also a week of reflection, really, because, you know, I quite like this time of year because it's probably the slowest time of year that I have. So it enables me to sit in, have a little think back on the year, and also put some plans in for the next few months, which is good.
Secondly, it's the head of cricket performance at Portsmouth Grammar School. A man, he never stops working because you might be able to hear the sound of bat on ball in the background. It's Sam Lavery. Hello, Lavers.
Hi, David. Apologies for that. We've just got a few of the boys getting some extra Christmas practice in between my one-to-ones, and they're enjoying it. We've got a couple of younger lads in there who've braved it in out of the cold, and they're getting a little bit of batting and bowling in, which is nice for them. But it is a nice cold, crisp morning on the south coast.
Yeah, lovely. Keep us updated if you hear any particularly good shots ringing out. Then we'll need to know what happened. So keep one eye on it.
Well, there's one of the boys in there is looking good, to be fair. So I might be giving you some commentary on some of the shots he's been playing, because it looks like he's hitting it pretty hard.
There's no better time for a player in England to be in great nick than the week before Christmas.
It depends what level you play. If you're queuing up, that's mind you, I suppose. It doesn't matter if you're playing Ashes cricket, doesn't it? It's all gone. So this is going to be our last show of the year. We're going to have a little Christmas break ourselves. So I thought it would be a good time, Gareth, as you were talking about reflection there, to talk about some of the things that we learned this year. Something that perhaps, you weren't too sure about at the start of the year, but this year has become something that you're really into. So let's start with you, Gareth. Is there anything this year that emerged that became something that you think, I'm definitely going to be carrying that into next year?
I think the whole perception of failure type situations that we constantly have in cricket, because ultimately it is a game of failure. I think over this year I've learned more about how we can use that to our advantage and to help us to develop some better strategies, and actually to help us to learn from our mistakes a little bit more. And that came about through a bit of reading that I did at the beginning of the year. And off the back of that, I'm still formulating better and better strategies of how I can manage cricketers, when they're down the end of the net and they've hit a shot that they're not happy with, and they get really down on themselves. What sort of language can I use to try and get them to understand that feeling of failure is actually something that the best players in the world use to their advantage to learn at an accelerated rate. So a couple of books that I've read this year have really helped me to start to get my strategies around that. And the first one being Black Box Thinking, which I read, which is Matthew Syed's book, which I read when I was out in the West Indies at Easter. Fantastic, looking at the way that different businesses and different organisations use failure to get themselves moving in a positive direction at an accelerated rate. And then more recently, Will It Make the Boat Go Faster, which is about a rowing team, a British rowing team that won gold in 2000. It happens to be involving one of my mates from school as well that was in that boat. So it's got a bit of personal stuff in there as well, but I can read about Lewis Attrell, who I grew up with on the Isle of Wight. But also in there a lot of good strategies for dealing with failure, because ultimately that squad hadn't been successful, had never won medals at World Championships or Olympics, and then went to the Olympics after a 2-year cycle of putting together some really good strategies based off the back of some failures and learning from those failures, and ended up with a fantastic gold medal. So those two books have really inspired me to look at our game which we do fail at a heck of a lot. Even the best players in the world fail sort of 60% of the time, and how we can use that failure to really push us forward to new greatness, I suppose.
And Lavers, what was your message that is high in your mind this year and will continue to be high in the mind next year?
I think something's that's becoming, well, I think it's obvious. Maybe it's been obvious to people a long time, but there's a lot more in people than they think is in them, and cricketers, whether they're young or they're old, they can achieve a hell of a lot more than they believe, and they can get a lot more out of themselves physically than maybe they believe as well, and installing a little bit of belief and a little bit of confidence without doing any cricket related coaching. You don't have to be an expert in all the technical different things, but if you can inspire someone, giving them belief that they can achieve something, there are a lot of things that kids particular, they can do on their own. They can work out for themselves and they can go and perform for themselves without really needing too much kind of detailed analytical support. And one of a good example of that is we have Chris Tremont comes in every holiday, does a little bit of work with him with some of the bowlers. He's back in again tomorrow actually, and we had a boy who was bowling. He's nice, a year 10 boy, nice tidy bowler, but bowled at kind of 60 miles an hour. Could hit the same line and length all day long, and battled with a little bit of skill, but he said, I want to bowl fast. And Chris kind of said, okay then, yeah, you want to bowl fast, good. And the boy then repeated, well, how do I bowl fast? And he said, just bowl fast. And what do you mean? Well, just currently you're bowling line and length because you're trying to bowl line and length. If you want to bowl fast, then try and bowl fast. And this completely baffled one of our boys for about 15 minutes. Didn't really know how to take it. But then realised, actually, no, I don't try and bowl fast. And he's spent the last 3-4 years operating at 80%. And actually, if he operates a little bit closer to that 100% mark, he's going to stretch himself physically. And in the resulting sort of weeks, well, in the resulting 10 minutes, he got on 2 or 3 miles an hour just by actually trying to bowl fast. So that was a big leap straight away. But by equally challenging yourself and knowing that your limitations are a lot higher than you possibly thought they were, you can stretch yourself and you can progress a hell of a lot more and a lot faster than a lot of people think they can. So there's a lot more in the tank for people, and if you can draw that out of them, whether it's very simple conversation like that or something that maybe has to be a little bit more complicated, however it is, if you can draw that out of them, there is so much more in people than they believe.
I had two things. I had one was kind of around the whole idea of team spirit or culture and how that influences team performance, and sort of finding a way to build that into the teams that I coach. That's been a very interesting area for me, especially around the role of the captain and the role of the coach, and how those two interact with each other is something which is very interesting. And speaking of books, you read Gareth, I read a really good book around captaincy as well, called The Captain Class, by a chap called Sam Walker, who looked at some of the most successful sports teams of all times and came to the conclusion that the one common denominator with all these teams in all these different sports was the captain, and what the captain did and how the captain performed their role as captain, not even necessarily as a player within those teams, but as captain. So that was a fascinating thing, and that's opened up a whole world to me, that book, and the legacy book as well about the All Blacks, which was a lot around culture as well, was very interesting to me. So all that piece around there has been very interesting to me this year. And the other thing, which is maybe an even bigger can of worms, is this whole idea of constraints-led coaching, which is really sort of came home to me. It's something I've thought about a bit for a while in the back of my mind, but it really came home to me during the ECB CA conference, where it's pretty much all anybody talked about was this kind of self-learning and athlete-led and constraints and all these sort of academic terms which float around. But when it comes down to the practicalities, it's what you do practically in sessions and how you work with players. It is different, and so I'm still experimenting that and still trying to find a way through this very different way of coaching, which seems to perhaps not even look like traditional coaching, but also seems to be pretty effective, not only in improving skill, but also in making sessions more fun and interesting and putting smiles on people's faces a little bit more than being dour and serious and telling people to keep their elbow up.
Yeah, I think that's a good one. I've had quite a lot of exposure to that 2 or 3 years ago, as it was really a new thing, and it challenges you, doesn't it? It sort of goes, heck, how did I go about practice before this? But as you say, I think from an experience point of view of the player and what they experience, it really does help to put, as you say, smiles on faces. And whilst you're not going away from those points that need to make them a better player, that your process of getting them to experience that is different. It's been something that I like watching coaches using that approach. I spend a lot of time watching other people going about their business, and certainly I've seen some really big moves within some of our bowlers with Dan, who works at the school, who uses this approach a lot.
Yeah, it's a fascinating area, and it's controversial as well. If you go to certain corners of Twitter, you can get into some very heated debates where, well, me personally, I only probably understand about 30% of it, but people get very, very passionate about their particular corner of this debate. The insults are often slung around, and it makes me think, how if such a small field in terms of people who are that deep in it, perhaps we should all be a little bit more friendly about it. But yeah, I like to dip my toe in every now and again. So a fascinating area, and as I guess with a lot of academic style stuff, the debates are long and heated over very, very tiny points. So it makes it fun to watch from the sidelines, at least.
How do you feel those sort of debates go when you come to crossing? Obviously, this kind of thing crosses sports quite easily. Easily or not, I'm not sure, but it does cross sports quite quickly. Do you see kind of almost ideas being slightly different to the application of this in different sports, or is everyone kind of pushing in the same direction from the conversations you've had, or the conversations you've read and followed online?
Yeah, I think although the sports are different, what the same thing is that we're all human beings doing it, and the whole idea around this is how do humans develop skill, right? Physical skill, and what that physical skill is varies between the sports, but the sort of overarching principle of how they do it, how you go about that, stays the same. So, I think if it's more to do with what your principles are and what your philosophy is than it is to do with what sport you're coaching or what sport you're researching. Obviously, if you're researching a sport like hockey or rugby or football, which is a team sport played, an evasion sport they call it, isn't it? You have to sort of score against an opposition. That's a slightly different way of going about it, but the overarching principles stay the same, that you're building in constraints and you're letting the drill do the coaching rather than telling people the answer and drilling them until they can do it perfectly and then putting them into a live environment. So yeah, the football version of it, or the hockey version of it, is dribbling around cones. Say, you should never dribble around cones. And the cricket version is you should never hit the ball off a tee. That's the extreme version of it. But it doesn't. I don't think it varies much depending on what the skill is. But enough about Twitter. Let's go on to some cricket questions that have been sent in by listeners to the show or readers over at pitchvision.com. And of the 2 questions that get asked this week, we pick a winner, which gets a prize, and that prize is an online coaching course from PitchVision Academy at pitchvision.com. And the first person who sent in their question this week is Robin. And Robin says, how do you prepare for 2020 batting as an opener?
Yeah, good question, Robin. And we're getting into that 2020 mode, aren't we? Big Bash is kicked off, and and that's looking really exciting again. Once we get beyond that, we get into IPL and then through to the CPL and over to the UK as well for our version of 2020 cricket. So yeah, topical. How do you prepare? Well, I think preparation comes in all sorts of different ways. Of course, you can go into the nets, get some throwdowns, get on a bowling machine, hit some balls, and practice hitting the ball out the ground or practice hitting areas on a cricket pitch. Fantastically good practice, all of that. But I think before you do any of that, the best preparation that I can give is to really work out how you play, what your best shots are, because boundaries are so important in T20 cricket, particularly when you're playing T20 cricket on good surfaces. Boundaries are the thing that the biggest KPI, I suppose, in terms of having outcome success at the end of the game. Your team, if you score more boundaries than the opposition, you win more often than not. And so as an opening batter, you have the best opportunity in many ways to score those boundaries, because the fielders have to be up. There's only 2 outside the circle in that first 6 overs. The ball generally comes onto the bat, even when spinners, which we see bowling a lot now, the new ball will skid on and allow you to hit through the ball a little bit more. And yes, you can get some seam movement and some swing up front with that new ball, but ultimately, if you're using a white ball in particular, it tends not to dart around all over the place too much. So it can be the best time to bat, and therefore your boundary options are really important. So having a very clear mind on what they are and what balls you're looking to access to the boundary, what lengths and lines you're looking to attack, how you're going to make the bowler or the bowlers fall into those areas more often than not, how are you going to pressurise them. So the more clarity you can have as an opening batter in A, what balls you get, and B, how you are going to get the bowlers to bowl those deliveries, the more boundary options you will get. It's not necessarily always about developing another shot. It's not trying to find a shot that you've never played before in your life. It's more about getting hold of your shots and applying them into a game of cricket. So you look at somebody like David Warner, who's incredibly effective at the top of the order. He plays 2 or 3 shots really well, and basically makes himself puts a bowler under pressure to bowl the ball into those areas. So that would be my first and foremost thing. Be really clear in your own head, and then you can go to the nets, or then you can start to practice those shots, but be really clear on how you're going to go about your business at the top of the order, because it's a crucial place in 2020 cricket.
I don't know if you saw this, Lavers. There was a bit of research recently where they were testing players' performance against a pink ball in twilight conditions, and they found that using special this is not a joke. It sounds like it might be a joke. Special rose tinted glasses allowed you to pick up a pink ball better in twilight conditions. So if you're playing 2020 cricket, evening cricket with a pink ball, maybe it's time to get some rose tinted sunglasses.
Well, I've got a couple of pairs, as you know, David, so I'm covered already for that. But would that be a surprise? I don't think it would be. I think technology these days, sunglasses are very good, aren't they? And it does. You can get those light enhancers or variations on light enhancers that do bring out the colour, the different colours that you've got in your line of vision. And at that time of day, I think it's common knowledge that people do find that blurring of day and night and floodlight and no floodlight and all thrown in with the dark backgrounds of the crowd and then you've got the pink ball thrown into the mix as well. Anything that can help it stand out is going to be useful. However, how many people do you think trust science and will then go, right, if that science says it's better, I'm going to do it? And I would imagine that not many, to be honest. I think there'll be you might find there's a 5% take up in that. Maybe one person in a cricket match might do it, but it's probably going to be a slow burner. Chris Gale will have a couple of pairs, as will a few of his colleagues, I'd imagine, because he's done that kind of thing before, and a few of the West Indians who've probably been a bit more accustomed to those kind of conditions maybe have done it a little bit more, because those guys play a lot of 2020 cricket around the world, and that they've probably had 3 or 4 years of doing a lot of that. But is it going to be taken up? I'm not too sure. I think in the 2020 opening scenario, I think obviously Gareth's mentioned very briefly the kind of the physical preparation about how you can go and do different things. But I think having your mind clear and having that kind of plan of I've got an option for these general areas is a really good starting point. And you don't need to have a shot for every single delivery, but if you've got a shot for something on the front foot, something on the back foot, something that's a little bit wider and straighter, and you've got a few things you can put together, and then you can move from one to the other and understand how to adapt from one to another and how the shot's kind of merging together, then you're in a pretty good position. And the other thing is just being able to adapt a little bit to differing fields and differing lines of attack, because your 2 men back could be third man cover 1 minute and the next minute could be long on mid-wicket. So having that awareness and understanding that actually you've just got to get the ball past these men that are 30 yards away a lot of the time, and if you do that in the right direction, then you're getting your runs, rather than swinging recklessly right from the start. And I think that's something that's a common trend of the best opening batters in 2020 cricket is they don't just run at the ball every time and swing as hard as they possibly can. There's a lot more skill and a lot more finesse, and with the power they have, they don't need to swing quite so hard. They can just get bat on ball in the directions they want to, and it flies away anyway. So not that I'm necessarily assuming that you've got that same skill, finesse and power, Robin, but if you are able to get bat on ball consistently and you can beat the infield, then you'll be away and flying before you know it.
Next question's from Jack. And Jack says, I'm playing a Christmas indoor cricket tournament to pass the time before the summer. Well done, Jack. And Jack says, any tips for getting the most from it?
Yeah, well, go on, Sam, if you want to go first. Sorry, mate.
Well, I was just going to say, we need to dial in someone who is an indoor cricket expert, and I happen to know possibly the greatest indoor cricketer in the world, and I think Gareth knows him as well. And there's a guy called Richard Kenway, and he is the best indoor cricketer you will ever see.
I know Rich very well, and he was phenomenal. Is he still playing?
Oh, he scores 1,000 runs a year. He just walks in, gets his whatever you get. He's off you go. I don't think he's been out since the 90s. He just goes.
He was incredible. Yeah, when I can remember watching him play indoor cricket, because I was actually useless at it. So I always used to look at him with massive envy, really. And how many Lord's finals has he been? Indoor Lord's finals has he been in over the years? So get Kenneth on. He'd be pretty good, I think, and answer that fantastically well. But from my experience of watching him and playing in the game a little bit, not very successfully, one of the things that I've seen people do is really use and Rich might not be one of these people, because I think Rich is so competitive that he just wants to play brilliant cricket indoors. He wants to win all of the time, and has done it on a consistent basis, taking sides to Lords and winning cups and so on and so forth. But for some people, and your question sounds like a bit of a preparation piece for the next year, as opposed to, indoor cricket is as important to me to do really well and to win cups and win matches as the outdoor game. So in preparation, I would look at it slightly different from probably Rich would have gone about it, and say, right, what can I get out of indoor cricket that I can then take into my summer game? And I remember playing a number of years ago, and my game was very nudge and nurdle and very pull and cut, which, pull and cut isn't particularly good indoor cricket stuff. The ball would go straight back to the middle of the pitch, and if I was running between the wickets, I'd get run out by about 8 yards. So that wasn't too clever. So one year I decided to go very much with soft hands, trying to do two things really. One was to knock the ball into the corners and sort of beat gully line into the corner offside, and the other one was to defend the ball very softly, so almost it just rests up against the wall into cover and mid-wicket. And I got reasonably good at that, and then obviously I could take those skills into the outdoor game as well, and I found that I was able to rotate the strike so much better than I had done previously when I then went outdoors. And then secondly, in the follow-up year, I looked to try and develop my straight hitting game. And in the game of indoor cricket that we played, hitting straight, if you hit it in the air, you got 6, and if you hit it on the ground and hit the back wall, then you got 4. So I looked to develop that, and that winter I became very good at hitting boundaries straight down the ground. That was something that I was never very good at in the outdoor game as well. And then the following year, so the third year, I tried to sort of mix and match that game a little bit more selectively, because I've been very predominantly one and very predominantly the other in the preceding 2 seasons, and I didn't have actually as much success at that. I found that much more difficult to do indoors, but then when I went outdoors, I started to develop a game where I could hit opening bowlers back over their heads with little chip shots, which gave me a completely different perspective when I was batting, and really made the opposition captains in the outdoor game have to set slightly different fields to what they had done previously to me over the years. So I used it very much as a preparation piece. I'm getting that from your question. So pick out one of those two things to really try and develop over the course of the winter, so you can then affect your play when you go outdoors. And then from a bowling point of view, having Yorkers, for example, is a great indoor ball, but equally you might be playing on a surface where that back of a length ball up into the ribs works pretty well. And certainly one of the years that I played in that was a ball that we bowled predominantly. We bowled without a mid-off and put 3 people on the leg side and did that really well with the seamers that I played with. So we were very specific about how we went about it, but equally we wanted to make sure that everything that we did indoors was about what we were going to do outdoors, as opposed to it being about winning that particular competition at any given time.
Yeah, and I suppose if you go in with a goal of saying, I'm going to see how I do in developing these shots, whichever one it is, that the softer hit, the working the ball into the corners, hitting it straight. If you get good at doing that in the indoor game, then that does carry across, and then you can, the rest of it is, neither here nor there. It'll help with fielding as well, of course, won't it? If having the ball whacked at you from close range, you can only get better, or get a broken finger, which is why I never bother playing indoor cricket.
No, I do think that if you really put a bit of time about thinking into the positions you get into when you field, so what position are you in as the ball is being released? The game's so fast, if you're a fraction of a second late on your movement, then you'll notice that someone's already through. The guys will run so fast between the wickets, they're trying to go every single ball. So if you can really work on that synchronisation of your movements with the bowler bowling the ball and the batter playing the shot, and really try and fine-tune that, and fine-tune it with a position that allows you to explode out of that stance, left, right, forwards, backwards, etc., then that gives you something, because you're only ever going to run maybe 5 or 6 steps in either direction, sometimes less than that. So it's really important that the quality of your movements in those 5 or 6 steps is absolute top-notch all the way. So just try and refine those movements that you do have as the bowler's coming in, and the position you're getting to be into by the time the ball's making contact with the bat.
Yeah, and enjoy it as well. Have a bit of fun, work on a few skills, and hopefully win a couple of games, and then have a good Christmas.
Presumably, from a keeping point of view, David, it's just a great chance to be up to the stumps and get in someone's face, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, any opportunity you've got to practice keeping, where there's actually a batsman there and a bowler who's trying to, bowl properly, that's a golden opportunity, because it doesn't happen that often in practice, does it, Gareth? You're always searching for that opportunity.
No, definitely, and I think that's a great option. I forgot about keeping, which is terrible of me. But yeah, standing up indoors is fantastic. You get the opportunity to squeeze the game massively and create wicket-taking opportunities that maybe you wouldn't normally do outdoors, and it might give you that confidence to do it more outdoors. The other thing as well, from a I suppose from a damage limitation point of view, is that there's normally a net or a massive wall standing behind you. So when you do miss it, it just bounces back towards you anyway. So it doesn't go for 4-5. So there's that sort of safety net thing where you're only going to concede one if you miss it. So it's a bit like having a backstop, isn't it? So I think it's brilliant because it can encourage even the more defensive wicket keepers to take a risk. And certainly when you look back on my career of keeping wicket indoors, but more importantly, because I bowled most of the time, other keepers, Stephen Snell, for example, who's at Somerset now coaching, he played in the same indoor side as me. And I remember his keeping up to the stumps really developed one winter as a result of standing up to everybody, irrespective of their pace, indoors when he was about 14, 15. And so I'd really encourage that. But as I say, having that backstop behind you is pretty cool, though.
I suppose there's a bit of a chance for those 20-20 skills as a keeper as well, where if you are back, hitting the stumps with your glove on or keeping with one glove or whatever, and those kind of death overs in a 20-20 where they're trying to sneak in that extra single, and that's not a thing that's practiced a great deal, is it? Firing a quick underarm return at the stumps with a glove on isn't something that's practiced, but maybe in indoor cricket that's the kind of environment that a keeper might have to do a little bit of that as well. So there's probably a little bit of transferability from back as well. But I guess keepers want to be up indoors as much as they can, don't they?
Yeah, well, you only get a little bit of space, don't you? Standing back, so you might as well not bother really. So I'm with you on that, Sam. I just think indoor cricket, from a keeping point of view, gives you the opportunity to do stuff that we wouldn't normally get exposed to outside, and that might open up some opportunities when you go outside to think, hang on, I've done this indoors, so why don't I try this now? Why don't I stand up to this person now? Why don't I look to try and run him out at the non-striker's end by taking a glove off and throwing barehanded? So, I think, as you say, Sam, it's an opportunity to practice those things, but most importantly, to keep playing cricket and to keep being around your mates. And, that's one of the things that I loved about indoor cricket, was the fact that you got together once a week and you carried on all of that fun from the summer, and so good luck, Jack, with that.
And that is all we've got time for on the show this week. Before we go, there is one more thing we need to do, and that's to decide on the winner of the competition. The winner gets an online coaching course from PitchVision Academy at pitchvision.com. And the two people in the running are Robin, who was asking about 2020 opening the batting, and Jack asking about indoor cricket. Which one did you prefer this week, Gareth?
I'm going to go with Jack, actually. It really got me thinking back to playing indoor cricket, which I didn't think was going to necessarily be the case. And as I say, the enjoyment that you can get from that is just fantastic. I also got probably the best sledges from the balcony of all of the spectators as well. That I ever received, because being a keeper, you weren't normally that close to the crowd, so I didn't tend to hear too much. But certainly when you're in an indoor hall and they're barracking you from the balcony, normally with a couple of beers inside them, that was always good fun. So good memories. Thanks for that, Jack, and you are this week's winner.
Congratulations, Jack. And Gareth, for everyone else listening who didn't win the prize this week, but they fancy their chances, they want to send in a question, how can they get in touch with us?
Well, they can give us a call on 0203 239 7543 or drop us an email on coach@pitchvision.com.
That's right. There's lots of other ways you can get in touch with us. You can message us through the system at pitchvision.com. You can find our account there, our public account there at PitchVision Academy, and you can send us a message. Or you can do it on Facebook, facebook.com/PitchVision Academy, or Twitter @PitchVision Acad. You can subscribe to the show. That comes out every Friday. You just do a search for PitchVision Academy in your favourite podcast app, and that will come up. And if you want to get the show through pitchvision.com, head over to pitchvision.com/academy and click on the podcast link for all the details, all the show notes, and all the old shows which you can download or stream straight from the website. That's all for this week. We hope you listen next week, but until then, have a good week. Cheers, Gareth. Cheers, Lavers.
Cheers all.
Cheers, guys.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Or, as I said in America, Happy Holidays.
Beautiful. What an accent. Finish on an American accent. That's
exactly a really bad one. Do we get many listeners in New York?